We are back, CA football fans, with the latest edition of This Week in CA Football. I'm Bobby Broyles, joined by my co-host, Tim McDonald.
Thanks, Fuse.
And we're set to break down another Saturday of non-conference action for you. But first, let's get to the storylines from Week 2. The CAA claimed a pair of wins over two of the better Patriot League programs as Villanova roughed up number 11 Fordham, and JMU won a thriller on the road at Lehigh.
Two huge wins and really a big week for CAA football in general. Now the league is 8-2 on the season versus FCS competition. You know, you look at that Villanova win and you see the scoreboard and you see a couple of thunder delays up across the board. Villanova just got it done. I mean, that's just an impressive win. Fordham's a really good team, picked to win the Patriot League. Villanova rushes for over 300 yards. A lot of guys, we know John Robertson was the CAA Football Player of the Week. Get ready to hear that a lot this season. But just really convincing win. To hold Michael Niebrick, the Fordham quarterback, to no touchdowns and just 6 points for that Fordham offense, a really good job. Kudos to Villanova getting it done at home. Then you look at James Madison on the road. Really, if you look at their schedule at the beginning of the year, if you said to someone, oh, they'll be 1-1 after 2 weeks, that's pretty good. At Maryland, and then, of course, they win at Lehigh. Two big freshmen played huge for them last week, and that's kind of a theme for JMU so far. It's get the win on the road at Lehigh versus a good team. Now they get to come back. And, of course, UAlbany. Hell of a job by the Danes. They're 2-0 on the season now. Last time UAlbany had back-to-back wins, Bob? The end of 2012, okay? So it's been a little bit of a time. Of course, just across the league, just a really great bounce-back week. Looking forward to seeing how the rest of the non-conference play shapes up. We're going to see a couple of good matchups this week.
And of course, let's not forget Stony Brook. Heck of an effort versus UConn.
Lose by 3, right. The defense really did play well. I think offensively, a little bit angry if you're Stony Brook fans, but they're still progressing.
Absolutely. Well, as we start to break down Week 3, we get to see another CA Football Patriot League matchup. A battle of the Rams takes place on Saturday afternoon at 1 with Rhode Island heading to the Bronx to take on Fordham.
Yeah, I don't know what the schedule gods, I don't know what happened here because remember Rhode Island opened up at Fordham last year. Now they're going to have to go to Fordham again this year. And this is a Rams team, like we just mentioned, probably pretty angry coming back home after that performance versus Villanova. Rhode Island's a team we saw play very well defensively against Marshall in the first half. It's only 17-0. Eventually, they lose 48-7, but still, Mac Lowry, he's a Boston College transfer. He was the quarterback all last week for Rhode Island. And we saw, to hold Marshall to 17 points at half for a Rhode Island program that's building and still building brick by brick, that's a pretty good job. Of course, the end score was kind of what we expected. Still, a good opportunity not just to see what Villanova did to Fordham last week. If you're at Rhode Island, you go to the Bronx. What else can happen? Give it a great shot.
Yep. Andrew Bowes really led that linebacker group and the defensive group. Caused 3 turnovers in the first half against Marshall. Also at 1, Maine comes off a bye week with the trip to Bryan.
Maine's defense, we know the first week of the season versus Norfolk State only allowed 100 yards, which is, that's you can't even do that in Madden when I'm playing you. But Maine, I think, you just come into this game, a lot of confidence just knowing you had the bye week to kind of regroup. I know they didn't show themselves offensively as much as they wanted to versus Norfolk State. Didn't have as many yards as I think they thought they had. Against Norfolk State, like I mentioned, they only gave up 33 passing yards, 67 rushing yards. Bryan's a team right now that has a lot of confidence, so don't think in any sense that Maine is going to travel down to Rhode Island and go into this game thinking they're going to roll over Bryan. Bryan beats Stony Brook, a team in this conference who has a really physical defense, only allowed Stony Brook to score 7 points. Maine, I think, goes into this game knowing that offensively, yes, they struggled versus Norfolk State, but that's also something that they can build. Quarterback Dan Collins is going to have to progress a little bit. That Maine defense, I'm really excited to see what they can do in only their second opportunity of the year. It should be a great game.
At 2, Towson looks to get in the win column for the first time this year on the road against Delaware State.
It's a new year. It's a new team for this Towson squad, and Coach Rob Ambrose, talked about it in this week. He's even said there's players on this team right now. It's a little bit of a wake-up call, and he wasn't scared to say, Bob, that some of these guys maybe who thought this year was going to be the same as last year, not so fast. They're going to come into this game, I think, looking to get a win, and I don't think they're desperate in any sense, but I think they're a little bit angry. This is a Delaware State team that lost to Delaware last week, gave up a lot of rush yards against the Blue Hens. I think Towson, that's what you just got to get back to the ground and pound. Connor Frazier is going to be the quarterback. Rob Ambrose said that. There's no doubt, so there's no question of a controversy or anything like that. Just a question of this Towson team getting into a flow. We really don't know their identity. I think it's going to be on the ground versus Delaware State.
At 3:30 on the American Sports Network, New Hampshire, also coming off a bye week, and gets a shot at Lehigh as well in the dungeon.
This is a game to watch, I think. It's a 3:30 start, one of the latest starts in New Hampshire program history. People don't forget this is the first year that they have lights. I don't know, at 3:30, we'll see if it's going to get that dark.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll see, but New Hampshire's coming into this game off a Toledo loss, and the defense played really well in the first half, so did the offense, but second half, it's just a question of athletes of Toledo just took over the game. Really interested to see how this secondary and the linebacker core of New Hampshire bounces back. Lehigh's a team who might have lost that James Madison game last week, but still a team who put up a lot of yards on the Dukes, over 500 yards of offense. New Hampshire only rushed for 37 yards versus Toledo. New Hampshire can get the ground going. They're going to have a lot of questions offensively. Really interesting game. But let's remember, New Hampshire lost to Lehigh last year. Maybe a payback opportunity this year.
Absolutely, and this may not be a CAA football league game itself, but this is the debut of CAA football on the American Sports Network. And remember to check your local listings and CAAfootball.com for ASN clearances in your area.
You always got us covered, Beeves.
Absolutely, got to get it on TV. Next, Tim, at 4 o'clock, James Madison has its home opener at Bridgeforth against St. Francis.
We saw Coach Everett Withers get his first win as the Dukes head coach. Now he gets to run out of the tunnel for the first time and get those streamers going.
Yeah, get the streamers
going.
going.
The Dukes fans will be out there in full force, throwing the streamers, hopefully throwing the streamers, I should say. So remember, James Madison and St. Francis, this is the same team. These guys played last year. James Madison pulled out a win last year, 24-20. It was a closer win than I thought people expected last year. St. Francis is a really run-oriented team, has a lot of athletes that like to run the ball. James Madison, I think, is going to come out with a lot of tempo and a lot of excitement, not only playing at Bridgeforth, but just coming off a win. Remember, you look at the tape of that. Yes, this James Madison team is good, and the program is really strong in the past. You looked at the tape of that Lehigh game, and the players, they were ready to win that game. They were pumped. Blocked field goal to win the game. Come back home, get a chance. Let's not forget, I don't think JMU will look ahead, but let's not forget who they play next week at Villanova.
Absolutely.
Should be a great one.
Another side note, that road win for JMU last week was their first. They didn't win a game. They didn't win a road game last year.
Thank you.
So
Look at you
first
pulling
in
out
a
the
long
stats.
time. Exactly. Next, we head down south to Elon as the Phoenix, fresh off a bye week, take on North Carolina A&T in their home opener at 6 o'clock.
Another interesting game just because of the history of the two teams. We've had that's a theme this week. A&T beat Elon last year. Of course, that game was at A&T, but again, Elon's an interesting team. They had that bye week. They played well at times versus Duke. Duke is a very good team. Let's not downplay that.
No.
Mike Quinn, the quarterback for Elon, played well. I thought Kier Brown played well at times too, the wide receiver / return guy for Elon. This is an interesting game, not just because A&T is a good team, but they played Coastal, the number 5 team in the nation, really well last week. Lost by 1 point to Coastal. It was because of a blocked field goal, a missed field goal. It's a really interesting game. I'm expecting a nice crowd. I'm really excited to see what Rhode Stadium is going to look like at Elon. This is the first time we get to see the Phoenix on their own home turf. A lot of excitement there, but I'm really excited too just to see how this Elon offense looks to progress over the year.
Also at 6, Delaware, who got to play on NFL Sunday this past weekend. They're going to be operating on a short week this week, Tim, as they host Colgate.
Yeah, it's an interesting tactic to have. You know, they have to play on Sunday because of lightning on Saturday. It's a little bit of a short week. Colgate comes in out of the Patriot League, a team that in the past has been really dangerous offensively. I think they're stepping back just a little bit this year. Delaware, I was really impressed by their ability versus Delaware State last week to run the ball. Jalen Randolph and Hills, the sophomore running backs, got it done. Yes, the score wasn't indicative, I think, of the final outcome, but I think Delaware proved that they're going to try to get the run first start and then let Trent Hurley air it out a little bit. I like this matchup for Delaware because they play so well at Tubby Raymond Field.
Stony Brook returns home this Saturday to take on American International at 6 o'clock.
If you're a Stony Brook fan and you're sitting there and you're saying, oh, we're sitting 0-2, this isn't the way CAA football, this isn't the way we wanted to go into, I think you should pump the brakes a little bit. We did see, yes, there's growing pains offensively, but like you said, there were times versus UConn last week when Stony Brook looked really good and really good defensively. That's something to build on, I think. We saw Connor Bednarski, the backup quarterback in week 1. He played a little bit more last week, passed for over 100 yards, which barely happened the week before that.
Led him on the touchdown
He did have a touchdown drive to Will Tye. So I think Coach Priori mentioned, too, he's just been very surprised and proud at Bednarski and how he's played in the last week. I think Stony Brook has a chance right now at home to bounce back versus American International. Little New England tie, American International out of the NE10. Bob, I hit below the Mendoza line, baseball in the NE10 at St. Michael's College. I think Alex, our colleague there, used to coach soccer in the NE10. A little bit of a tie there, but I think Stony Brook at home gets the offense back versus a Division II program and gets it done.
Wrapping up the 6 o'clock start times will be Richmond, which tries to bounce back from the UVA loss with a home game against Hampton.
Hampton lost to William & Mary last week at home. I like this matchup for Richmond just for a chance to get the Spiders back in an offensive flow. I was actually at the game in Charlottesville versus UVA. A beautiful little Saturday. A tough matchup for Richmond. People don't realize, though, although the final score looked a lot worse than it actually was. I know Richmond had 7 turnovers in that game. Michael Strauss, the quarterback, just got beat up a little bit, got hit hard. Richmond was only down 14-3 with 20 seconds left in the first half and fumbled the ball on the 1-yard line. If they get that in, Bob, it's a completely different game. Richmond showed they can move the ball against an ACC defense, which is, great. But I still think Richmond needs to expand the playbook a little bit and figure out the running game still. That's something that we know was a question mark for this team coming in. I think they can get it done against Hampton. Hampton threw for over 300 yards versus William & Mary next week. We know how good the Tribe defense is. Still, Richmond playing at home, a nice little game for them to come back and get back in rhythm before playing New Hampshire the following week.
Tim, I feel like expanding on getting the running game going, I'm going to steal a Dick Vitale line. A diaper dandy here in Jeremiah Hamlin. So far as 12 carries in his career for 126 yards, 2 touchdowns.
Correct?
Yes, freshman. He was freshman of the week 1. Give him the ball a little more. He's a good-looking freshman there at Richmond.
I'll tell Danny Rocco right now.
The nightcap features William & Mary welcoming in Norfolk State for the Tribe's home opener at 7.
And earlier in this program, we talked about Norfolk State, a team versus Maine who opened the year only getting 100 yards. That's versus Maine, and Maine's a very good defense, but this is a William & Mary defense that is arguably better.
Yep.
So for that reason alone, I think William & Mary has an advantage. Of course, they're playing at home as well. I think really William & Mary's job offensively last week, they just got back to the physicality of that offensive line. Abdul Sabor, the running back right now, is the feature back in this offense. Last year, he was the feature back, but he wasn't. Now he's the feature back. 107 yards last week, 3 touchdowns. And the week before versus Virginia Tech had 85 yards rushing. I think he's the guy. We don't know the severity of Trey McBride's injury. We know he's injured. I don't think it's very serious, but right now guys like Sean Ballard have stepped up a little bit, and Cluey's gotten a little bit more comfortable. Expect the same thing versus Norfolk State this week.
Remember, fans, CAA.TV is your home for every video streamed game this weekend. Log on from any internet-connected device to enjoy the Week 3 action. CAStats.com and CASports.com/live scores are your sources for live scoring and in-game live stats throughout Week 3.
And on Sunday, Bob, before you freak out about setting your fantasy lineup, remember to check back to CAFootball.com for our Sunday rundown page. And of course, you can follow the league on our social media platforms such as Facebook.com/CAFootball and on Twitter @CAFootball using my favorite hashtag, CAFP.
A lot of familiar foes seem to be the trend heading into Week 3, Tim. Hopefully this could give the upper hand to several CA squads this Saturday. I see Delaware State again, Norfolk State again, we see Hampton again, several teams.
Fordham again.
Fordham again.
Coaches always talk about, it's a new team, it's a different year, but I still think it's good to look at tendencies from past years, and I think coaches would be lying to you if they didn't look back at those games. A lot of things to learn. Again, CA football got it done last week versus non-conference foes. I expect the same thing this week. That's why what makes this league so great in the end is the non-conference, because then you get into conference play and teams start beating each other up. These are very critical weeks. People always forget, yes, it's out of conference and you're playing teams from out of state, that you might not know that well. These are important weeks leading up to conference play. We're a week away from conference play, Beebs.
Absolutely. We'll have to wait and see how it all plays out. This is all from us today, but we will be right back here on CAFootball.com next Wednesday. Enjoy the game Saturday.